Welcome to the players' lab. Yeah. When no other moment, man, it can't compare. Due to the obvious, people look at me and in the envious.
Welcome to the 48-hour rule, a UteNation podcast. The 48-hour rule is now in effect. Zack, Derek, another week. This one's a loss, boys. So little bit different tone going into this, but still trying to stay positive. How we doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Yeah, definitely excited to jump into, the ins and outs. I think Zack and Cal did an amazing job giving just a very just professional breakdown of what they saw immediately following the game. And so excited to just kind of dive into that a little bit more as we've been able to sit and digest some of the game a little bit more. And then obviously looking forward to next week. But yeah.
You said it with that post game, man. Zack, it's so nice hearing you and Cal break things down, and it's probably just it's a breath of fresh air for the fans to be able to still hear it from two guys that played the game, two guys that everybody looked up to over the years and everything, instead of like it's nice hearing from the coaches, it's nice hearing from the players, right? But at the same time too, they're going to be it's in the moment. They don't know everything really from processing it yet. And at the same time too, they're going to give that coach speak. They're going to give the line that they were kind of taught through their media training, right? We don't get it from you guys right after the fact. And at the same time too, even though it wasn't the result that everybody wanted, it's still kind of reassuring hearing it from you guys and to be able to break it down in such a simple way, man. Just from the other day into now, I mean, how are you feeling even just being able to process it yourself?
Good, man. I think, the main two things for me still is that the defense played really, really good. They were challenged a lot in man-to-man situations downfield, and, those passes just didn't go our way with a lot of breakups there. But the DBs did look good overall. It wasn't a big concern. And the defense overall looks really good. Obviously, we mentioned talking about a lot of missed tackles and things like that. And that's something you can't get ready for, essentially, when you're playing a team like that. Just, and Cal hit it on it, just the Texas speed and size and different things of that nature. So you can't get ready for that. So it'd be great to go into this upcoming week and not see those same mistakes again and see how much we've tightened up on that. But yeah, still worried a little bit about the offense, man, because it's not going to get any easier. Like, it's just not. Like, we've had the first three games were the easy games to work out a lot of kinks, work out how you're going to, call this situation and what's our favorite plays in this situation and who are the guys that we essentially going to count on to do certain things. And especially the time to do all your turnovers, right? If you're going to turn the ball over, let's try to get those out in the first three games. But it felt like we just had a lot of those issues that were there in the first three games that we got away with because of the opponent. And those things caught up to us on a team that I believe is good, but we shot ourselves in the foot a lot of times. And I know Coach Witt and the staff came back in there that next day and had that team meeting, and everything was self-inflicted. There was nothing that essentially they did that just beat us. We beat ourselves, and that's never where you want to be out on the side of a loss. It's always better if somebody just flat out whoops you, and that was not the case. So yeah.
And before kicking over to Derek, you mentioned something there that I kind of want to touch on with everybody. So you're not at risk of being clipped, even, right? We had fun with joking about that last week, but the better team on that day won the game. Okay. Nobody's taking anything away from Texas Tech. Texas Tech has a great football team. And, we said that, it looked like they might be building it right because how we talked about building it from the trenches with spending that money. They've built it the right way. The beauty of it for them is their starting quarterback gets hurt, who was I am completely of the belief that if Baron Morton stayed in that game, Utah wins that game. They pull it out. Okay. But Utah knocks him out of the game, and Texas Tech turns to their, I believe he's at $900,000 quarterback. So the luxury of being able to go to something like that, which, we don't need to keep diving into Texas Tech, right? But if you ask my opinion, and granted, it's one game, I got the vibes of Utah 2003 when Brett Elliott was being talked about so much by Urban Meyer. He ends up going and getting knocked out of that game, and then Alex Smith takes it and just takes it to that next level. That's the vibe I got from seeing that other dude and then kick into this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for them throughout the season, and maybe it is a rematch. Who knows? Because Utah's not as bad as they showed that day. That 34-10 score is not as bad as that game was. A lot of that came towards the end when that defense, their will was broken and they were worn out.
Yeah.
And so again, it's nobody taking anything away from Texas Tech, but you do look at that film and sit back and say, God, Utah beat themselves here. Utah beat themselves there. Like, there's all these little things. Same time too, Texas Tech had their moments too, where they could sit back and say, well, if we wouldn't have done this, it would have been worse, So, but it is probably a reassuring thing for the team and for Kyle to be able to sit back and go into those meetings and say, like, look, guys, as good as they were, we beat ourselves. And again, It's not taking anything away from Texas Tech.
A lot of things that can be fixed. Absolutely. And I think that's
Exactly.
a good thing. It wasn't a lack of effort, will, things of that nature, which we never really had a problem with. So all that was, you turn on that film, is just execution, right? It's turnovers, all things that you can control. So they'll be much better this upcoming weekend for sure.
For sure. So, Derek, man, let's hear about the trenches, because Kyle admitted, and he didn't think that something like that was going to be possible. Again, not a slight to Texas Tech, but just how good Utah always is in those trenches. Utah got beat in the trenches this weekend. How did that happen?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess to start off, as a caveat, no disrespect to Texas Tech. They showed out. And their defense played a hell of a game, and the better team won, like you said. But really looking at Saturday's game, and as I rewatched it and kind of was able to break it down a little bit, a couple themes kind of stuck out to me from – and I'm approaching this maybe focused primarily on the offensive side of the trenches, because I think our defense, like we all said, played lights out for 3.5 quarters. After that time, it's kind of hard to get that juice continually going for that long, and Texas Tech kind of took over. But from an offensive line standpoint, if you really look at first quarter, and it was one of my top things that I highlighted on X, was that when you have 2 fumbles in the first quarter, it kills operating rhythm, especially at the O-line position, because offensive line, think of that as like a big machine that takes a little while to warm up. We're already big dudes. You have 5, sometimes in some packages that Utah runs 6 that are running it, right? To be in sync with each other, with our running back, you need plays and consistent plays going for them to get in a rhythm. And what happens when those 2 fumbles came up, those were timely fumbles that just killed momentum right away. Yeah. And so, not to make an excuse for the offensive line, because yes, 100% they did not dominate in the sense of redistributing the line of scrimmage 3-4 yards downfield to really put Texas Tech on their heels. However, I think part of that was due to the fact that when you fumble like that, it's a drive killer, and for an offensive line, that's something that you can't control. It really affects how you start to, your operating rhythm and getting into a motion that's consistent. And so, that was a big thing to me. I do believe I talked about, being too cute, playing on the edges, right? Obviously, you want to respect Texas Tech for what they did in the box. They have a lot of beef in there. Number 2 on Texas Tech, he was a transfer, I believe, from UCF, held it down in the middle, was taking up 2 gaps at one time. Kind of like I think Zack, you touched on it, kind of like a Vita Vea with Washington back in the day. And so, Did we attack it? Did we keep into that as much as we should have? I think we maybe went away from that. However, I'm curious Zach's opinion of this, because what also factored in, I believe, is that when Wayshawn fumbled and was kind of, Coach Witt doesn't like that too much. And you saw that those carries were redistributed to the other backs. And to me, Wayshawn is a downhill runner. When he ran and scored the touchdown, it was right in between the tackles, and he was full speed ahead, and he just goes. And unfortunately, I think there were some critical plays where there were short yardage runs where he was not in. And unfortunately, not to say that the offensive line didn't do their job of getting maybe as good of a hole as they should have. I also felt that the other two backs maybe don't have as much of a nose for that kind of smash mouth straight forward to get the first down type of mentality that Wayshawn has. And so, those things compound. And so we had to go to the edges, and, credit to Texas Tech, because their corners played very well. They pursued the ball well. They got past wide receiver blocks. And when you play that game of needing to make plays in space, you're relying on your skill players and to block, but also to, get yaks. And sometimes that can be a dangerous dice to roll, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm really kind of curious on this, Zach and Derek. I have a line question I want to ask you in a second or two, but Zach, Wayshawn's averaging 6.5 yards a carry. He's being classified by the team as more of the home run guy, and Nakari being the guy that can get the in-between tough yards. Is that, just from your first initial impression of him, is that an unfair characterization of Wayshawn? Because I look at it, and like Derek said, he gets those tough yards. He is a home run hitter too, though. Now, you still want to give Rodgers those carries as well, so there's a fine balance. But to me, I feel like it's an unfair characterization. So, just really kind of curious, just your take on this from what you've seen.
Yeah. To answer Derek's question, question about, to me, about Coach Witt, the fumble and stuff. Yeah. Once you fumble, man, it's going to be tough sledding just to try to get back into that game. And I remember watching the game, it's like, okay, I hadn't seen him for a while after the fumble. And he is kind of a loose ball carrier. He's not high and tight, all those things that sound super lame when I was playing there and they kept harping on, but it is a real thing, because like I said, that was, on our recap with Cal, like, you're protecting everybody, everybody's hopes and dreams. That's what we used to, had a guy in Buffalo, I think Andre Roberts, probably like year 10 by that time, right? Special team guy. But the way he was said and reiterate, hey man, that guy over there playing with our hopes and dreams, right? Because that ball is job security. That ball is everything for the fans. So when you have that, I believe perspective is everything, right? If you have a great perspective just on life, and then now do that with the small things, right? Like, I know the ball it's annoying, and you've heard it for years, and you're probably like, man, I don't fumble. But in games like this, turnover battles are going to be huge, right? Like, turnover battle is always huge every game, and it gets amplified in certain games, right? And it sucked to see him put the ball on the ground, because it wasn't the first time. It was the week in UCLA. And, it kind of just got brushed over a little bit because he kept playing and no one said much about it and things of that nature. But then it showed up again on Saturday. And once I didn't see him back in there, I already know what was happening on that standpoint of things. Because Coach Witt is a defensive coach, right? Like, you got to understand the play style that he's also trying to play, right? If you're a player, and understand, man, if I'm playing for a dude essentially where we're going to throw this ball a lot, turnover is going to happen. But if I'm playing for a guy who is about time possession, turnover battle, field position, special teams, all these different things, like, that part of the mentality of your game has to understand that. And I don't think he is just a home run runner, right? I think he has the ability to be a home run guy. I don't think he is a home run guy. He's not where you just like a Jahmyr Gibbs, right? That's like if you just said, oh, Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run. Gibbs can get between the tackle and get nasty and be physical, right? A lot of these guys have the ability to do that now. I don't think there's anything, this is all he can really do. And Rogers is a really good player as well, but I think sometimes you got to ask yourself, obviously, Parker has the body type to run between tackles, which is why when he does do it, you see him being able to have the contact balance, bounce off of guys, and still fall forward because of his body, right? Now, that's just us looking at it, right? We're not there every day at practice. We don't know what his mentality is of running at practice like that and the mentality he has, right? So that's a whole other thing in itself, that just because you have the body type doesn't mean you are actually, wanting to be a physical back and what that entails and things of that nature. So that's a question mark that you could ask yourself as well, right? And your question, Alex, about, I think I answered it, but like just to your point as well, like, yeah, I don't love the label on them. I think you have two dudes who have the ability to counteract off each other, which is nice, which is great. And you got to allow them to do that. Like, that game for us wasn't going to be getting cute, getting on the edges. We don't have the players outside to get cute and get on the edge. Even though he fumbled, right? Obviously, you never want to put the ball on the ground, but in this type of a game, hey, man, I got to go with our strength. Our strength is, and then you're telling your offensive line as well, we don't believe in you, right? When you go outside, we don't believe that you guys can make this line of scrimmage move over and over and over. And that depletes the offense, right? That hurts the big guys up front. That changes their whole mentality and how they're going to attack the line. Are we jump setting? Are we firing off? All these different little things that matter, right? Like, I used to, when we played, I can't remember what team I was on, but when we just came out throwing the ball, man, that sucked the life out of the O-line, because you want to run, you want to get those pads clacking, you want to get loose, you want to get them knees bending and all those little things that people don't think about. And when you do that and you get outside, you try to throw the ball outside, and now you're asking guys who are pass catchers to now be blockers, that's never in your favor. So even though he fumbled at one time, I think that game would have been best if we still would have, lost essentially, right, on our own sword, which is our big guys, our two backs who have been our best producers, right? And two guys that are very versatile that can also catch passes out of the backfield. But that's the great thing about football, right? You're not going to win them all, right? And they have the ability now to watch the film and kind of learn and see what they might have changed, and it's a great chance to go do it in West Virginia.
Yeah. So you were pretty damn good with ball security, right? But what point do you feel like in your career that Whittingham and Ludwig and any of the other offensive coordinators finally just said, you know what, like, if it happens, it's Zack, we're good?
Man, they didn't want to give me the ball for a minute, man. I had to go upstairs and just be like, hey, man, I need this ball. No, but for me, the ball security thing was something that we harped on every single day. Like, our running back coach, Coach McDonald, was on that every single day. Like, it was never a day. Like, I remember times where we had to walk around the facility with a ball if somebody else fumbled. Like, you had to go to class with the ball. Like, it was crazy. So, but it made you, even in practice, like, if you fumbled in practice, right, or somebody took the ball out of your hands late after the whistle, right? Like, it was just that type of mentality that we were always just on edge with that ball, which was, like, even if you fumbled and it went out of bounds, like, he would be hot, right? Just because now you're putting that on tape, right? And guys are going to think about that. And now every game that Parker goes into, they're going to punch at the ball more than they ever would have if they never saw him fumble, which is another thing from the mentality part, which sucks, because now he's going to have to think about that a little bit more than he would have just been able to just go out and play. But yeah, like, for me, I think for the offense, they just realized and let it go, right? Like, and I also took a big pride on not fumbling, and I knew what that also does for setting yourself up for the NFL and all that type of stuff as well. So for me, I was just always on top of it and always on point. I don't really know how many times I fumbled in college, but still, it was just like, it'll eat at you. And I know it's eating at Parker right now, putting the ball on the ground twice, only losing one. But yeah, it's a tough thing because as a back, that's like, yeah, you can miss a pass, pro, right? Like your O line's gonna be like, yo, you gotta make this block, bro, because you're an extension of the O line. But when you fumble the ball, I think that hurts you a little bit more because that's something you can control, and you let another man take the ball out of your hands.
Yeah, and talking about that and how important it is to Whittingham. I mean, we talk about needing playmakers right now, right? For the team, and I don't know that Nate Johnson got on the field. If he did, it was probably towards the end of the game. He might have been doing the old, the movie The Program style thing, carrying the ball around all week, all week at school, and then they might have him. They might have had him doing it on the sidelines too. I mean, that was, and then the other guy that is somebody that everybody viewed as a really good potential playmaker is Creed Whitmore. He's been nowhere to be seen. And Kyle said today it's because ball security in practice. That's how important that is to everybody, And so it's when you got two guys that could be such dynamic playmakers and they can't hold on to the ball, and then you add somebody like Wayshawn who just had that happen. Doesn't bode well for them in a Kyle Whittingham offense, even though it's Jason Beck making the calls. Derek, you were talking about hitting the edges, right? As opposed to just pounding up the middle. That's something that I know Kyle wishes that they had back, especially going back and looking at tape. That's another thing that he's acknowledged. Okay. You as being on offensive line, take me through the emotions that Spencer, Caleb, all those guys were probably going through during that game when they're sitting there saying, like, we know what works. We know how good we are. Trust us. Let us pound it up the middle. Stop going to the edges. Like, what does that do to the confidence of the offensive line? And then also at what point do you guys maybe step in and say, and go to your offensive line coach, go to the offensive coordinator, go to Whittingham, say, like, run the damn ball up the middle. Trust us. We got you.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I really feel if they're the O-line that I think they are, and especially the leaders that they have on that offensive line of being experienced guys, I believe it was eating at them. Frustration definitely was probably adding up. Because like I said, you're not able to get into this rhythm, and when fumbles happen, that's something that's out of your offensive line control, but it reflects, it starts to dictate play calling, right? Mm-hmm. Moving forward. And so whenever that happens, sometimes that play calling gets removed from things that you can control as offensive line, and just the pride factor that they have. Think about it. These guys went to this game. They were on Big Noon. Everyone in the country was one of the best offensive lines in the country. This, and then you get showed up and shown out like that on national television. To actually, what I hope to see, and kind of going into what I look forward to seeing, is that these guys realize that at the end of the day, is ownership. As an offensive line, the best offensive lines as units have extreme ownership, and we weren't good enough. No matter, regardless of everything that happened, at the end of the day, this offensive line was not redistributing the line of scrimmage. They weren't dominating and making it easy for Whittingham, for Coach Beck to say, no, our guys are moving the line of scrimmage. We're going to keep to it. It was kind of in a gray area, and at that point, with every other factor, coaches decide to move away from that. And that should hopefully eat at this offensive line this week and say, no, we're going to commit ourselves to this dominance, and we're going to make sure that there is no excuse as to why we aren't relying on us as a unit, because that's what this team is built around. That's what I hope to see. Obviously, you look at, huge impact play mistake by Fano by being downfield. It looked like, they were running one play, the skills ran a different play, and that unfortunately happened. And so I hope that eats at him, and I believe,
he acknowledged it in the post game too. So respect and props to him. He said he heard the wrong call at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
He took full responsibility of it.
For sure. And then, I think, for the most part, things were pretty clean from pass pro. I think Caleb Lomo hopefully will look at this game, and I think he's going to have a little bit of chip on his shoulder because there were some pressures that I think he's better than, that I believe he's going to get cleaned up, and so that's what I look forward to. But, yeah, just to answer your question, I think that's kind of the mentality that I believe this offensive line has, especially from what you said of just the ownership, and that's what I expect out of elite caliber offensive line. And so, what is it is it's good to see, or it'll be fun to see what adjustments are made and what the shift is like for the offensive line going into next week. Because to me, it's easy to be up when you're up, but when adversity hits, that's really where you start to see the true character of people. And so I think this is going to be one of those times where we can start to see the character of the team, what really makes them.
For sure. And I had Zack over there throwing back that drink, so can't forget. Yeah, you gotta let the Greek keep throwing it down, apparently, because I'm sure that Derek doesn't have the kava. Huh, Zack?
That was a coconut water. I've already killed that off.
I can do coconut water. I can't do coconut milk.
I can do both.
Both.
Yeah.
I can do both of them. Usually not a big problem for me.
What's that?
I said I can do both. Usually not a big problem for me.
Yeah, I think the first time I tried, actually, no, it's one or the other, and I can't remember what it was, right? But the first time I tried it, my ex-mother-in-law gave it to me without telling me what it was, and just told me to try it. I think I pretty much spit it out right on the spot. But I can't remember. I know I like one, and I just can't stand the other. But yeah, no, thank you. Give me my soda. Give me my whiskey. Give me my beer. Go back kava.
Give me the good stuff.
Exactly. Apparently not the healthy stuff though, right? So,
yeah.
Oh gosh. So Zack, man, before we kick into some of the questions that I want to ask you guys, kind of leading into this week about change of mentality, kind of going into the preparation for the week, and so on and so forth. And the injury report stuff that everybody's just kind of, not knowing what to think right now. Dude, you were able to represent the university on a national scale this week. Not just that, you also narrated an awesome video for everybody. Dude, take us through your week and how fun that was to be able to be back and be so involved.
Yeah. So the video, one of the guys that works for the school, he hit me up and he was like, "Yo, bro, we're doing this video. Wanting to see if you would narrate it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that. That sounds pretty cool. As long as I didn't have to do anything like on video, you know what I mean? That's not really my my stilo, really." So I was like, "Yeah, if I just got to record something, sure." And they made it really easy for me. Came to the house, which was nice. So I didn't have to, ride that way. We knocked it out in just 2 takes. Which I was proud of because I hate. I'm not a perfectionist, but I do like being efficient. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, all right, never done this before for using your voice or anything like that. I'm like, I don't have like the craziest, deepest voice. I don't even like listening to, like, if I do something like podcasts or whatever it may be, like I won't listen to it, right? Like, because I don't know.
I used to be that way.
Yeah, like I don't know if do I have a good voice? This is a voice that people, I don't know. So to me,
Derek, it's a sexy voice right there. No. We'll give it. You got a sexy voice, Zack.
But so I was like if my wife listens to something, like I always either I leave the room or I was like, "Hey, you gotta listen to this later," because I hate listening to my own voice. But when he sent me the video, and we only took 2 takes on it, and it was like I just read it all in one piece. And he did a great job of outlining everything, and it sounded really cool. It's like how he envisioned all that and stuff like that. So it was cool to be a part of that. And then obviously the big Noon Kickoff stuff, that was dope. That came out of nowhere at the last minute. Honestly, I didn't think they were gonna ask me to do anything about it. I was literally just in the middle of trying to get tickets for the game and things of that nature. And then I got kicked that, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. Like, why not? Didn't know what I was signing up for. I didn't know if I was going to be like on set, sitting down, microphone, talking a little football, whatever for a second. Didn't know how long I was going to be up there. Definitely didn't know we was going to be sitting up there on the stage that they had on the football field out there and stuff like that inside the crowd. But it was super dope. It was a great moment just being able to, be a part of something like that. Obviously seeing Coach Meyer as well and being over there with him and, him having the big week as well, getting inducted to the Hall of Fame and all that type of stuff as well. So it was a really cool week. I do believe that the city showed up the right way. We talked about it a lot. We talked about it a ton.
They showed out.
They showed up and showed out in a very, very good way. All those guys, Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, Mark Ingram, all these different dudes were, I think, really like stunned on just how great of an atmosphere. Because I always tell people, like, bro, you don't know what Utah is unless you like actually live there, right? Or you've played there, right? And me being from Miami, I'm not like a Utah advocate, but I've always just tell people, I'm like, yo, bro, I can't really explain it to you. You also have to be a different style of a person, right? Like if you like clubs and you like all the super out late night stuff, okay, not your place, right? But if you like just like all the other stuff, right, on the other side of that stuff, right, this is like the perfect place, and it was really good just to be able to see that. Broadcasted the right way in the fans and the student section and all those people just doing it right. Being up at 4 a.m. I was like, damn, that looks great. But I'll be sleeping. But they did an awesome job, and I was just happy to be a small part of it. So hopefully they come back, man.
Man, you talk about the 4 a.m. stuff. My alarm was set for 4:05 because I wanted to get down and just see everything that was going on.
Yeah.
I knew that the pig bus was going to be on national TV, that they were going to have that interview and all that stuff. So I wanted to be there and just kind of see all that stuff and soaking, because it's different than game day, right? It was a great crowd, a great setup. I was kind of worried with how small the area was at first, but the way that they packed everybody in, it's gonna rival game day eventually. It's not there yet, if you ask me, but it's a fun, different vibe, and everybody took to it well. So yeah, they showed out, man. Being there for that, and then at that game, some of the penalties that they were able to force, they were making a difference. They kept Utah in the game. They kept Utah in the game.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I saw the penalty yardage compared to ours, and I was like, that's crazy to have that type of advantage. You almost should never lose. And that's probably even more sickening because you asked for the crowd to be crazy. They give it to you, right? You asked for all the things, and you just like, we just couldn't get any momentum. And it's hard to go back really fast, but it just hit my head because Derek spoke on it a little bit about the rhythm. They couldn't get a rhythm, man. And like a big game like that, you want to get at least 2 first downs, right? Like just get a first down, let things settle in a little bit, all those different things, which just felt like they never could just get a real rhythm. And those fumbles, if you had any doubt going into that game, right, as a player, any doubt is just a little bit of it. Once the fumble happened and then the pick happened, you almost feel like, man, we weren't destined to win. We wasn't going to win this game. And like those things are real, right? People don't want to talk about it and things of that nature, but you're human. You're just an athlete, but you're human. And once those things happen, because I'm on the sideline, I saw the fumble, and I'm like, okay. And then the big play, the number 20 on the missed tackle, and he breaks it off for like 60. I'm like, okay, here we go. Right.
Richie
so like
ran into the ref.
Yeah. So it's like all these things are realities that you really have to, when you look at, that's the thing I always challenge fans on. It's like people always talking on like social media and all these different things, and right. But like you really have to break the game down. Like a million things are happening in one play. A million things. So much communication, so much footwork, so much technique, so much execution. All the little things that we harp on and we get bitched at every single day for. Like when you look at the game and turn it back on, like you really have to just like give it the human aspect of it as well, because, you know, even though athletes are able to put on superhuman performances, things that bring you back down to earth does happen, and thoughts as well. And just take that part of it into the game, and when you know, looking back at it and be like, okay, what happened here, and just give it that realism.
Absolutely, man. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about, you know, this is kind of a perfect segue for that stuff, where we kind of got the sense that there was something going on with Devon. Didn't fully know there was that Utah social media picture that was leaked last week and immediately taken down. Shout out to Utah social media. That you got to be smarter than that, right? But Whittingham acknowledged today that Dampier did not practice Tuesday. He did not practice Wednesday, and he practiced a little bit on Thursday. Okay. Huge reason why Utah had to be so vanilla on offense. You know, that's where, I mean, we'll see what happens going forward, and we'll see how bad it is. I've got inklings of what's going on with it, but obviously we still have to be careful. We can acknowledge that there's an injury. Okay. Obviously it was bad if he missed those 2 days and barely practiced on Thursday. But what I want to ask you guys, instead of the controversial topic that's kind of been going around on social media today about the injury report and how Kyle wasn't, you know, again, it's open to interpretation on how they ask for certain things with the list, right? Some people can say that, yeah, well, he was honest because the intent was for him to always play, right? Others can sit back and say, well, there's the probable, questionable, doubtful, and so on, you know, and really kind of nail him on that. Kyle is king of working the gray areas and thriving on the gray areas. Okay. Whether people think it is right, whether people think it is wrong, where Kyle can find an advantage, Kyle wants to take that advantage. Okay. So what I'm really curious with you guys is, just with your time being around Kyle, what are some of the areas where he thrived in that you can maybe think of with those gray areas, or maybe you just want to answer in a general aspect on, you know, again, like I said, he thrives in those areas, you know, and so when he's given that, he's going to play that chess game.
Yeah, you say it perfectly. Like, the man is a chess master, and any advantage that he can look to find, why wouldn't he take it? Why wouldn't anybody look to take it? You know, like, if they're not, you know, I won't say that term. If they're not going to actively like find him and come after and do, you know, and go after him from a monetary value standpoint, then it's obviously not that huge of a thing for the Pac-12 emphasis. So why would Coach Witt look to conform to it? You know, it really just, why would you tip your hand and say, yeah, our quarterback has been hurt and he hasn't practiced for 2 days and he's going to take probably like 2 series on Thursday. You know, like, why in the hell? Like, and man, I don't want to get into it, but like, why, fan? Like, exactly what does that accomplish in Utah football, being able to come out and play? And just on that last point with Devon Dampier, like, people, I saw a little bit of the banter on Twitter of like, well, if he wasn't ready, why would we go with him? Because he's our leader. The dude, like, when you have your leader, if I have Zack Moss, I don't give a damn if he didn't do walkthroughs. If he says, Coach, I'm ready to go, Zack has earned that, and you know that he's ready to go. And I feel like Devon is the same on that, you know, maybe not on Zack's level, but he has earned some of that respect by how he's approached coming into Utah, his pedigree of what he's accomplished, and just the way that he approaches everything. And so, you know, people are like, well, how come, you know, we couldn't use our backup quarterback? Because when you are going in the heat of this kind of battle, you want the guy that you're going to put your chips on. And Devon is that guy. And so that's, to me, why we would stick with him. And so, yeah, that was just my over frustration. I think personally that Coach Whitt doing that is you're playing chess, people. Get every advantage that you can. And that's my piece on that.
Before hearing Zach's piece on it, playing devil's advocate and seeing things from the other direction, right? You know, you talk about, you know, props to Kyle for taking that gray area and running with it, which plenty of people will agree with, right? But I also have to say props to McGuire with Texas Tech, where he put that injury report out exactly how the Big 12 expects it to be put out. You know, will Kyle get fined? Will he be reprimanded? How? You've said everybody has to put out an injury report, and this is how it is. They gave very loose language on how to do that injury report, and then they said that there would be repercussions if it was broken. They didn't put out repercussions. How? You can publicly come out and say you don't feel like Whittingham conformed to it. You can all of a sudden do a third of the way through the season actually define what is going to happen when somebody breaks it. But Kyle's testing him. You know, he's just sitting there saying, you know, okay, cool. You guys want me to do that? Come after me. You know, like honestly, that's Kyle, right, guys? So yeah, I mean, I just, again, props to McGuire for putting it out the way that the Big 12 is expecting it to be put out. You could tell Whittingham really did not give a damn, right? And maybe spent like 10 seconds on it. Yeah, out. These guys are out for the season. There you go, right?
Well, and then Alex, also like look at, and I'm curious Zach's point of this, but also like let's say that he does put Devon on those lists starting early last week. Now everything that all the players are seeing on social media, all the questions are being asked, is Devon going to be ready to go? Is Devon going to be ready to go? You're going to have like outside noise in that kind of scenario. Coach Whitt is trying to insulate that team from that outside noise as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And so that's
you're right. You know, so it's like these injury reports don't help. But yeah, it's just Zach, you know, let's hear it from you, man. It's a unique situation.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Coach, it's a style, right? It's a style of coaching that he's probably done for 20 plus years, right? It's probably nothing that hasn't been done. He's probably done something similar to this before, right? When they were new to the Pac-12, when they were in the Mountain West, right? All these different things like that. I'm sure he's pushed the envelope where he could, right? And it's nothing that he's ever going to do, I think, to the detriment of the school or the players, right? That's always the main two things for him. And I think when you understand that, then there's never a point where you think about it in a negative way. Now, yeah, obviously there could be some things because you're dealing with a different conference and, you know, all these different things of social media a little bit more now and things of that nature. And I know like in NFL, I think we had to have injury reports out like Thursday or something like that, Thursday or Friday. I'm not exactly sure, but Coach Whitt has always done it with quarterbacks, right? Roster, depth chart stuff, right? Holding that information as long as he could. And then game day, whoever rolls out is who you roll out with, right? So that's why I say it's a style. It's different ways that he's done it, and he's done it in different things. And if it can benefit the team, right, they don't have to go to class and people asking, yo, how you feeling, bro? Or how's Devon feeling? Asking your teammates and, you know, different people asking, family members, you know, all these different things that go on, right? So it's also that part of the game as well that Coach Whitt is thinking about because he's seen it all over these long amount of years that he's been doing this at a high level. But it's a style. It's not going to stop. I don't think it's something that he's actually worried about. I think that it's a tactic. So, and it works for us a lot of the times more than it doesn't. I think obviously when you have an injury like that to your quarterback, you know, your star player, your main guy, and a leader at the helm. Yeah, now that can with an injury like that for ankle, and he's a mobile quarterback. It is going to be rough and it's going to be tough, especially after we saw the picture that ended up being posted by the school, which I don't know how in the world that just didn't get cropped. I love that it's Dampier and Urban Meyer. I'm all for it, but man, we do not need to see the shoes that Urban has on or the cleats that Dampier is wearing. So I don't know how they missed to crop that out. But yeah, it's definitely gonna be a challenge. I think you still have to roll with him. Like, I think he's a tough player. And I think he understands what is going to be asked of him, and I think he has a pain tolerance. If you didn't practice all week and then you did very minimum stuff on the last day to get ready for a big old game like this, and he looked pretty good, essentially, because they still call quarterback runs, right? So it couldn't have been to where, now this dude just can't do anything for you, right? It was quarterback designed run, still called. He could get out of the pocket. He didn't take I don't even know if he got sacked at all, but he was still able to move around and be, past the eye test, because I would have never known he had an ankle injury. So, I think they're gonna roll with him. I think obviously, I think you asked us earlier about potentially sitting him this week, and then getting into that next bye week. I had a similar situation.
I was going to be asking you that.
Yeah, like I had a similar situation like that for myself. Maybe my senior year, where I got hurt versus USC. I had a grade 3 AC joint shoulder sprain with separation, and we go to SC. We lose that game. I got knocked out, I think, like the first quarter. So one of my linemen literally fell right on my damn shoulder.
Dude, the team completely fell apart as soon as you were out of that game.
That I don't even remember that game. I just remember in the back, I was like, "Yo, I cannot get my arm out of this shit." But that game, and then I think we played Washington State the next week at home, and I didn't play that game. Right, I set out of the game, allowed me to get a little bit more healthy. Then we had a bye week that following week after Washington State, so it's different because I'm not a quarterback. Right, I'm not the one literally calling everything and galvanizing the troops and the different things of that nature. I don't know how much trust you have in your backup guys to go down to West Virginia. I think if we're playing West Virginia at home, right, and after just seeing how they just performed themselves this past weekend, I think you get a little bit more comfortability of trying to get out of that game maybe earlier with Dampier. I think he has started at the end of the day, because if you beat Texas Tech, right, this conversation is different. Now we can think about potentially sitting them for a little bit, or kind of play snap how many plays we're going to allow them to go out there and do. But now you're in territory where, man, hey, we got to go win this. And we cannot afford, right? Because like I said, West Virginia just got beat up pretty damn good, right? We can't go to West Virginia and have a shit show. That can't happen, right? Because Texas Tech, okay, respectable loss, right? Everybody came out of the weekend like, okay, it's respectable loss. There was an injury. Okay, all that goes out of the window this upcoming week after you watch the West Virginia tape, right? Watch that tape of last weekend, and then if we go down there and struggle and have a shit bed, and then we try to figure out excuses on why this happened or maybe why this could happen, we don't want to be in that space. So I think also the coaches believe that, understand that, and Dampier is going to play. And I think he'll be ready.
Derek, what are your thoughts on that? Because that was going to be something that I was going to ask. Is for obviously Zack said it pretty clear on that, but just the fact that props to Whittingham for coming out and saying that Dampier's hurt and what he was going through and so on and so forth, because the fans have they're quick to react and freak out because of everything that's gone on the last 2 years. Right. And so that's something that everybody's got to be conscious of. Whittingham doesn't care about their emotions. He doesn't care about their feelings. He's so locked in on, that team, that program, everybody within that building, and just winning the damn games. Right. But at the same time, too, I mean, that is why fans feel and react the way that they do. I'm not of the belief that Dampier should necessarily sit out this game and heal up and then be ready, and be able to go through the bye week and then be ready for it's Arizona State after the bye, I believe, right? But I do feel like maybe you be conscious of it, and at a certain point where you comfortable with, saying like, okay, good job. We know that you could probably fight through it more, but you're done, ice up, and let's just let you heal up through the bye week, and you are not practicing next week even, right? How do you feel about a situation like this where it's like, he's competitive, he's a gamer, he's going to want to go. Like Zack said, he was still being ran. How much of that was him just kind of being a decoy to keep them honest? Who knows? But he obviously wasn't limping out there, but he still wasn't Devon.
Yeah, I think obviously to everything that Zack said is spot on. I think it'll transition nicely into like my keys for this game. Obviously Zack alluded to it, that West Virginia is coming off a very embarrassing lot, like a big loss to Kansas. And Kansas ran up the score. Kansas got a lot of really high-powered impact plays on them that went for a lot of yards for some big scores, and they got up on them quick. And so if I'm looking at it from Devon's lens and having them start this next game, what I'm looking and hoping to see from this team is that Texas Tech doesn't beat them 2 weeks in a row. And I believe how that's going to showcase is not necessarily just getting this win, but how this team comes out in the first half is going to be very telling to me, because impact plays was the other part that it was non-existent in the game against Texas Tech. One of them was negated with the penalty of illegal man downfield, and then the other high-powered play. Yep, the overthrow, miscommunication route, whatever happened there with Merriweather, those were two impact plays that really can turn the tide in a game and get the rhythm, that momentum going. And so we need to see that happen in this next game. And I think if Utah can do 3 to 5 of those plays, not necessarily home run balls, but get chunk yardage, be moving the ball with some impact plays, and then also take care of the football. Those are going to be the two biggest things I believe will get that offense in a rhythm, but also in a way that can show that we're potent to getting downfield. Because, the reality of it is we need that kind of Showtime playmaker, that when the lights are on, we can go to them and they can be that impact player. And unfortunately that just was not there this last game. So
it might be Dallin. It might be Dallin. I mean, Dallin is looking like a stud. He's your next Utah tight end in the NFL at this rate right now. But it's a blessing and also a curse, where it's a disappointment to the fan base that they love what he's doing, right? But they've been itching to see a receiver break out, and it's just not happening. We've been harping on it. Zack, is just not happening.
Yeah, it's not happening. And this is a good weekend to try to figure it out again, man. I'm just not a huge believer. I know I come on here sound like a damper a lot when it comes to the passing game, just because I've played in offenses where we're super explosive down the field, right? And I've played in offenses where we're not. So I know when that tide isn't going to change, and I know when that tide has already begun, right? And it starts in practice, it starts in camp, right? It doesn't start week 1 or week 2, week 3. But I think, West Virginia is a team also, not to get too far ahead. I know we're going to kick into this, but they're not explosive either, right? They're not an explosive offense themselves. So I think, this is a week where we got to figure out a way to make those plays happen. It's just the week. You got to figure it out now, because when you come out of that bye week and you got Arizona State is explosive. They have a dude, that receiver, I don't know his name, but he is, yeah. Oh, yeah. He is everything you want right now in a receiver these first couple weeks. Now, hopefully he doesn't show any of that against us, but it'll be hard for him not to, right? Because, in this game right now, the most explosive teams win, right? It's really, really hard to continue to put up 10 to, not even 10 really, 12 to 18 play drives, because you're asking for a lot of stuff to go your way. And, I talked about this with Cal. I think, we gave those 12, 18 play drives a lot of credit. We did, right? And that's, was a huge compliment to the team and the coaches and all those different things of guys locking in and doing the job. But we also missed the foreshadowing of, why do we have to do that versus Cal Poly or Wyoming or whoever it was against? Like, why do we have to put that many plays together? Why are we not getting our guys? When I was in high school, even when we played certain teams in college, if we played a bad team, man, we were already thinking early in the week, not even before Friday night, we were thinking, I got a half, right? I'm going to play one half, and that's it, and that's it. Right, like that's the mentality that we had when we would go dominate teams and just like try to get them out of the way as early as we could, because at the same time, that helps with injuries, right? You don't have to play another half of football, like that's perfect. So, I think the defense is going to look really good this week. I think they are, and this is a great opponent because, like I said, they're not explosive at all. They don't really have those challenges that they're going to be going up against, and I think it'll be a good week for the defense again. Hopefully, the offense, like I keep harping on, man, just somebody, right? Somebody decide to pull up a chair to the table, come sit with Devon in that offensive line, and be like, you know what? I'm also one of the faces of this offense and a guy that can make this offense go.
In a minute here, we'll kick into predictions, okay? Get some over-unders from you guys again. Kind of try to make some over-unders interesting this week on just even seeing just like how much some of these guys are going to be trusted after, some of the last couple of weeks, right? And so one thing I wanted to ask you guys before kind of kicking into some of those things is, and then we'll get out of here a little earlier this time around, but we talk about the 48-hour rule, just the preparation leading into the game and everything. It was a big game. It was a big letdown. Same time too, you could argue that they beat themselves, but at the same time too, Texas Tech was the better team, right? So going from such a big stage and such a big game like that, and having it be a letdown, how did things change going into the next week on a Kyle Whittingham led team? Like, are there big differences? Does he stick to the process with you guys? What kind of goes into something like that when you guys have had kind of one of these games?
I think the emphasis has to be on starting fast. You don't want to come out sluggish, right? Which we felt a little bit. That, remember, we talked about in the recap of Cal that just didn't feel like guys came with the intensity that the moment actually required. And I think they missed that a little bit. So I think, starting fast offensively, getting those couple first downs, not stalling out on drives, the first drive of the game, just kind of getting into a rhythm. All of those different things are definitely going to be harped on because if, obviously now the injuries out there about Dampier. So the guys around him are going to have to carry a much bigger of a load and an ask that they probably had any other week before. And it's going to be a really good environment. I wouldn't say hostile. I don't want to say that. But it's going to be a really good environment, and those different challenges, we kind of seen them struggle in a good environment in Wyoming, and this is going to be a much better environment than what Wyoming gave us at the same time. So I think the thing is going to be just starting fast, man, like figuring out a way to put up points really quick. That way you can get your guy out of there, Dampier, as fast as you can and not put him in risk of anything and put himself in harm's way and stuff like that, and allow him to get to that bye week without, re-injuring this thing, tweaking it again, or, having to run the ball 15, 18 times on a bad ankle. Like, lean on your backs, right? Allow your guys in the passing game to get them into a rhythm. If it's short passes, some drags, some screens, some comeback routes, everything doesn't have to be a super deep shot right away. Allow them guys to build up some confidence and things of that nature.
Cool. Yeah, I agree.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I think for me, two things is what I'm looking forward to. Number one is, how does Coach Beck come back after what the offensive game plan was last week. Does he recommit to in between the tackles where his strength is in the run game? And also, to Zach's point, taking that load off of Dampier on the run and utilizing those running backs, seeing the offensive line redistribute the line of scrimmage in a positive way for Utah. That's going to be something that I'm looking forward to watching very closely. And then two, do we use Devon efficiently in the pass game, giving them some of those easy, confident throws, getting guys in space, and really starting to put things together. You get momentum going, and then look for probably the third part is we need a couple key impact plays where guys execute on, because they're there. We just got to go capitalize on them. And so I think those are the key things that I'm looking forward to, especially just in this first half going into next week.
For sure. And you guys touched on some great points. Curiosity was preparation. Kyle's he's always been a big proponent about sticking to the process, right? What have you guys ever seen within, situations like this where like, do certain things change the next week just from a preparation standpoint, or does he just sit back and say, look, we know what we did wrong. These things are going to be corrected if we just stick to the process and do the things the right way. Like how does something like that go within the facility and on the practice field leading up to the next game after a game like this?
I feel like things have definitely changed. So my experience might be a little outdated into how things are now. Definitely there was a lot more scrutiny coming off of a loss and doing things like longer periods. We were definitely more physical. Bloody Tuesday was definitely a lot bloodier following the loss, and so you definitely felt more of that. I can't speak on where that is today. I feel, and just anecdotally, that Coach Witt has approached it maybe in a different lens of like, hey, guys need to take ownership of this with his coordinators. Obviously, Coach Witt sets a very high standard, and so that'll always be there. And so I'm curious. I think you'll see the fruits of it heading into this game if those changes were made, from kind of more the team than Coach Witt leading it. So yeah, I'm excited. I'd be curious to hear Zach's perspective on that.
Yeah, I don't think much will change. I think obviously the physicality and the heightened attention to things that need to be fixed, right, will be there. But I think nothing is going to actually change on how preparation and things go and, moving this and moving that, taking something out or X, Y, and Z. I don't think any of that will happen because if you're changing your identity, quarter through the season, right, you got much, much bigger problems than just going out and just playing football and executing. And obviously I don't think that's ever been a thing for Coach Witt because you're talking about a guy who's been doing this for 20 plus seasons. And you can't just do that if you're not consistent. So I don't think anything will change. I think things will be heightened because guys will just understand the moment and the pressure and also where they're going to go have to play. And the conference is still winnable, right? You're not out of this thing. So you got an opportunity to still do it. Everything's in front of you still. So that's a really good thing. But yeah, nothing's going to change. I think guys' mentality is just going to peak up. Coaches' enthusiasm in practice, which is always really good. I think just all those different things are just going to be heightened, and guys will just go out there and you'll see that on Saturday.
So let's start winding this, guys. You guys gave me some very good points on what you guys are looking for and what you guys expect out of this game. Just give me your predictions. I'll give mine, and then let's do the over-unders and get out of here for the week.
Yeah, predictions. I got 31-10. I think we get back in the 30-point column. I think the defense shows up really, really good. Like I said, I think that's going to be a big thing for us. I think we're going to get some turnovers that go into points as well. So that'd be awesome to see that this weekend. But I'll go 31-10.
Yeah, I'm looking at 34-17. I think to Zach's point, we need to get in those 30 columns, and a 30 is only possible by coming off with a fast start. And so, obviously those are the keys that I think will dictate that kind of score. And it needs to be based on what we've seen from how the type of team that West Virginia is.
So I'd say we're all pretty much in the same ballpark. After seeing what I saw last weekend, I hesitate going into the 30s, even though I want to, because if they go into the 30s, I feel like it's that much more likely that you see QB2 coming in and, spelling Devon so that he can, make quick work and just start hilling up for that 2-week period after that, right? So I'm gonna go 27. We'll go 27-13 for me, from my end of things. Rich Rod could revive that program. It's just not there yet. It's going to take time. And I'm looking forward to, the possibility of him having some fun offenses again, because that dude is an offensive mastermind that anybody that's listened to me long enough, whether it's been through my website, through these podcasts and everything, Rich Rod was going to be an offensive coordinator for Zack and Tyler and the guys at one point. Kyle was on board. Rich Rod was on board. Ruth Watkins said no. So I can only imagine just how fun that offense would have been at Utah, because that's somebody that, Kyle over the years has always been, everybody's like, well, yeah, but Kyle still likes to control things. Kyle would have let Rich Rod do his thing. That would have been a fun time, right? So over-unders, and then let's bounce. But so there's two areas where West Virginia is decent. Okay, one they're top in the country. Okay, so the one that they're top in the country is actually red zone offense. Okay, I'm not going to kick in over to an over-under on that. The other one that I'll point out that they're top 30 on is their third down conversion percentage on defense. Okay. Other than that, they're pretty much, middle of the pack or not great. So this should be an easy win for Utah, hopefully, right? They're averaging just over 200 yards a game for their rushing offense. Okay. So over under Utah holding West Virginia to 150 yards rushing.
Under.
I'm gonna go under too. So we're not gonna be battling against anybody on this one, man. I think Utah is gonna have a pretty pissed off defense, and it's gonna show on Saturday. So good luck. I mean, I get that they're averaging a little over 200. Good luck even crossing the 150 mark. it's gonna be a pissed off defense, isn't it, guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This team has to come out with their hair on fire. Mm-hmm. Every phase. Hopefully we get a nice little spark from the special teams. That'd be nice. A big return. That always gets things rolling. So hopefully we get to see some of that. We have not seen that yet at a high level yet.
It's been missing. It's unfortunate to see. Over under on Wayshawn getting 10 carries.
I'm gonna say over, just because I think my points with the injury to Dampier and just trying to just get him out of this game as clean and healthy as possible. And I think, you want to install some more confidence back in Parker as well. And we took him out about the fumble. Mm-hmm. So, I think definitely got to get over 10. I'll even go as far as saying 10 in the first half.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd all like to see. So what about you, Derek?
Yeah, I'm over those critical downs, especially, you mentioned West Virginia being efficient on third down defense. Utah struggled mightily on third down and fourth down against Texas Tech. And a big part of it was because they're behind the sticks, but also on those critical downs, we did not lean on Wayshawn, and I believe that he can get those. And so I'm excited to see him do that. So I'll say over for that.
Man, I'm gonna have to come up with one that we're gonna disagree on, because I got to go over on this, and there's a few reasons why. And really, primarily, it's one of those where one, you guys talk about Devon being hurt. Okay, Two, you want to instill that confidence in him going into a bye week. You don't want to have Wayshawn sit there and dwell on it, right? Three, they're going to be pissed off and they're going to be wanting to ram it down West Virginia's throats. Kyle's looking at that tape right now and just sitting back like, how the hell did we get away from, just running that thing up the middle and just pounding those guys, And so I think that there's going to be a point to prove on that, and I think it's going to happen. The other part of the equation of this as well is Hunter Andrews ran off the field 2 different times, limping. I don't know that he came back in the game that second time around. And so that's going to be something to pay attention to, because he was going to start developing into quite the weapon that was going to eat into both Parker and Rogers' carries as well, right? So, all right, let's go over under 200 yards for Dampier passing.
I'll go under. I think he'd be right. Real close. Probably around 195. So I'll go under.
Derek, what do you got?
I say over because I believe that we need to dominate with some impact plays to get up on the scoreboard early. And so I'm looking for them utilizing Devon in the pass game to get some big chunk plays that way.
Okay. I'm going to go under with Zack to go against you, Derek. And here's the reason why, okay, is I feel like they're going to be conscious of knowing that they need to try to hit some of the deeper plays. If they do that, I think it's less likelihood that Devon is in there for the entire game because Utah's built up a sizable lead. So if he plays 4 quarters, yes, he goes over 200. I don't envision him doing that, and I do envision them trying to take some of those shots earlier on in that first half. So, all right, boys. Well, I say we call it this week. Always love chatting with you guys. Just the knowledge and perspective that you guys bring is fantastic. Derek, I was wanting to do this on Sunday night. We're recording on Monday. I was wanting to do this on Sunday night, try to bring that back a little bit, especially when it's some of the earlier games on Saturdays. But when you were coming back, from your road trip and everything, I was like, I need Derek's offensive line. I need the trenches perspective on this one because Utah got beat in the trenches, and I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. After they watch this tape and the emotions these guys are going to go through. So, all right. Well, Zack, how do we always lead? How do we always lead this off, man?
Got to. Appreciate you guys always kicking it in with us and locking in and listen to our thoughts and takes on things. But continue to like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Pod, Spotify, wherever you are getting this information from, and make sure always can share with a friend. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining.
Appreciate it. Later.
Welcome to the Players Lounge.